Hi, folks. Welcome to the Moving On podcast. I'm Jay Norman. This is my wife.
Hi, I'm Jess Norman. Babe, you sure you remember how to do this?
Oh, I bet we'll figure it out.
You want to start off by telling them our brand new name?
I'd love to. We want to welcome y'all to the brand new Moving On Again podcast.
And on with the show. Hi everyone, it's Jess. Welcome to the second part of Camino Cowboys with Jacob and Shaun. Unfortunately, after we recorded this episode on our fancy new equipment, I realized that my MacBook had reverted back to its own speakers. You're even going to hear about how excited we are about the audio in this episode. And I'm here to ask for the grace that audio will not debut until our very next episode. The guys and I deliberated for several days, and they decided that they would rather release this episode in its authenticity over the quality of the audio, and I have to tell you that I agree. This was such a special episode to Jay and I know you're going to be blessed by what is said here. So here it is, the second part of our dear friends, the Camino Cowboys, Jacob and Shaun.
Hi, babe.
Hi.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing so good. How about you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for the tacos.
You're so welcome. We went to this new place in town that just opened about a month ago, and their tacos were so wonderful. And the queso's at my feet, and I wish I could be snacking on it
Might
right
be a
now.
little crunchy. We'll pass on.
Right?
Made a little road trip this weekend.
We did.
Went to Kansas for a conference you did last year for the first time.
Yep. Whenever we kind of run 5 basketball schedules, so whenever we got in the car on the 10-hour trip, I had all of these things that I could finally stop and realize I needed to do. So I was emailing doctors and paying bills and checking on friends I needed to check on and doing all these things. And right when we hit that Kansas line, babe, look, babe, look. I was like, this is exactly what he does. I know he did it last time. I was like, if you touch my arm one more time.
Well, I just wanted you to see that big
But there
arm
wasn't
and that
anything.
combine.
There wasn't anything. It was just grass.
Pretty country. I loved it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your conference and what you did.
So this is our 3rd year for this Cultivating Courage. My friend Whitney throws this conference on. And the first year it was during COVID, so it had to be virtual. So my friend Jen and I did a virtual speech. And then last year was our first in-person conference. It was 200 people. I think we talked about it on the podcast in Sharon Springs, Kansas. And this year was around 320 in Colby, Kansas. And so Lily went last year and Lily went this year, and Jen and I got to speak again. And it was just everything you would ever want in a conference like that and more. And you were so excited. It was just nice to see you be so happy.
Yeah, I was in hog heaven. So
Yeah.
we drove to Oakley, Kansas, which was 9 hours. Got there, spend the night, and then the next day I drove another 9 hours to North Platte, Nebraska and back, and some side trips, and then got back, and we drove home Monday. We had a really good time. I got to see a lot of new country and a lot of things I wanted to see.
If you're listening and you're like, that's my idea of a nightmare, me too.
Yeah, it was great for me. My girls were taken care
Yep.
of and busy.
We
and
were.
I could
It
just go at
works.
my own pace and my own schedule.
And we do it each year, so it's just something we look forward to, and it works.
So, babe, I rolled in here pretty hot tonight, and
And your friends.
well, I'm walking up the stairs, and I
Yes.
hear this giggle. I'm going to say giggle because
Don't say
he
giggle.
didn't like it giggle, so I'm going
A
to call it giggle.
masculine guffaw.
There you go.
Okay.
If you say so.
Okay.
So I hear this, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering why Jerry's here, and Jerry's been
Jerry's
on
been
our podcast.
on our podcast.
And so I'm wondering why he's here, and then it's very warm today, and it's very warm up here, and they've all got jackets on, and I should have been clued in.
Yeah, me
What
too.
was going on?
Me too, because the ringleader said, "Is it warm up here?" And I'm kind of in charge of like making sure everyone's fed and comfy and has a drink. And I'm like, well, I turned the air on, and I knew by the look on his face I needed to grab my phone and start videoing because it had nothing to do with the temperature in the room.
So all of a sudden, they all start taking their jackets off, and they all have on Velvet Thunder. Which is,
And I'll put the story on my, I'll put the video on my stories.
yeah.
So y'all can see. It's lovely.
I
And they
take
brought you a shirt.
I take offense to ringleader.
Except
are.
you're first to claim it.
Yeah. Thank you again, guys. This is my second appearance with a T-shirt.
And Jerry was here just to give the T-shirt, and he's like, "All right, bye, you guys."
See y'all.
He didn't even stay, but we do have another buddy here as an
We
audience.
do. We're very glad to have him. I hadn't seen him in a while, and it's sure good to see him sitting over
Yes, Bodie Wilson is another good friend of ours. And Bodie, you guys are from Kansas. Are you from anywhere near where we were staying?
No, Colby's so far northwest.
So northwest, and where are y'all?
Dead south central Kansas.
Got it.
Ark City, Kansas.
Ark City, Kansas is where they're from. So his wife Danny was texting me all weekend when I was making fun of Jay, saying how pretty it was, and she was like, "It is pretty." I'm like, "I know, but I have some things I need to do."
It's called God's country for a reason.
Yeah, Bodie said it's called God's country for a reason.
I loved it up there. Not many people in my kind of place.
Yeah.
All right, babe. So we've got the Camino Cowboys sitting over
We
here
do
across
part
from
two.
us again. Yeah.
We did part two. We had a rusty first evening. Our audio, I never really realized, was about 6 years old and just kind of not working so good. We'd never attempted four mics before, but I thought I could figure it out. My girlfriend Lisa came over that day and helped add a mic and some things and helped me set it up. And in the end, we just didn't get the audio correct. So if you listen to the first podcast and it was a little up and down with the volume and kind of spliced together, we just didn't have the odds in our favor. So I got some pretty new equipment this week. It's so pretty.
You gotta play one of your cool little things.
Yes, okay.
It's like a DJ booth almost.
So I have a sound pad of 8 buttons, and we don't know what the buttons do right now, so babe, just pick a color and press it.
And he goes for crickets.
Crickets. I'm gonna
There's Bodie right there.
do one more. Oh,
That was for Shaun.
That's not that. That's a
That
record
was for
scratch.
I love it.
So it's this whole little DJ booth, and it just came out in January. It's a Roadmaster 2. It just came out in January. It sets up 4 mics, 4 sets of headphones, and it has made my life so easy. And I've just been so looking forward to recording on it tonight.
It's super fancy.
I hope the audio sounds really good.
Sounds great.
She's been super excited about
Yes.
this since it came in. She couldn't wait to get up here and get it set
I know,
up.
I don't get excited about much anymore, and I was just really looking forward to this.
So guys, round 2 of the Camino Cowboys. We had a great time the first one.
Yes.
Y'all did a phenomenal job, and baby did a phenomenal
Y'all
job
did
editing.
so
what you had.
good.
Yeah.
They did so good. I think out of the 3 of them, all 3 wanted to kind of scrap it and start over, and I kept saying, "No, you guys, like it's good. Y'all aren't remembering it very correctly."
Well, we gotta give you credit where credit's due.
That's right.
Jesse definitely patched everything together and made it sound a whole lot better than it was, because
Sure.
it was tons of rambling, possibly a drink spilled somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite the ordeal.
If I would have been thinking like y'all and I would have had time today, I would have showed up with a sippy cup plate.
Yes, we
that
should
would've been
have.
That would have been good.
We should have. So this is our second part with our buddies Shaun Hiller and Jacob Gallardo.
Thank you for being here.
Back
today,
for
guys.
part
Thanks for
2.
having us. We're stoked.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having us.
So, I don't know if listeners have listened to the podcast yet, but we let in the story. We had a little bit of trouble, and
Yeah.
so we just kind of had to cut it off and end it. So we just decided to make a second episode, and so that's where we are tonight. So,
Yeah.
guys, any thoughts on where to leave in? Kind of what I remember last was y'all were talking about. We're about 2 or 3 days in. You feel like you're behind. Realize you kind of got to pick up the pace. And so, what do y'all think from there?
Yeah, and again, thanks for having us back.
Yes.
We're stoked to be back, and I feel a little more relaxed this
Yeah.
time, huh,
Good.
Jacobs?
Yeah, for real.
Good.
Yeah,
Especially with all the pretty lights.
Firsts
Yeah.
are hard.
yeah.
Firsts
Yeah.
are
No,
so
for sure.
nerve-wracking. Nerves play such a huge part. So I knew y'all would like this better. And if you were feeding off of any of my energy last week, I was wound up tight because nothing was working.
I just felt like I was holding my breath the entire time.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
It just, I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Well, it turned out so
no, it was
good.
great. And
Yeah.
again, you did a great job.
No.
Yep. So it's hard getting back to where we're at, getting
Yeah.
that mindset. So
It'll take us a second.
and interesting enough, so I listened to the podcast, thought it was great. And then as of late, I've been looking back. I know Jacob has as well, at photos and so forth, kind of jog the memory, looking at YouTube videos, talking to some of the people that we met online or during our trip through the WhatsApp that we discussed before. And they loved it, by the way, which is also a shout out to all our folks that we met.
Hi, Julie.
Yep. Julie, Julia, Ahmed.
Hi, you guys.
John Johnson.
Yeah, our boys from
Down
Down Under.
Yes, thank y'all for taking our show overseas. It's so exciting.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool. So, so I guess getting back to it, where we were at, kind of where we left off, and again, sorry if we put a little more into it that we forgot or we're covering it again, but there was a point of the Camino where Jacob and I were going every, walk 4 days, take a day off. And again, our bodies were pretty thrashed in the beginning. And we're laying in bed one night and we're looking over our map of where we need to go. And I look at Jacob and we're counting days and we're running out of time because we are scheduled to meet our wives in Barcelona and take them on vacation.
Yeah.
Go somewhere. And we're counting the trek and so forth, and we can see through the map where we're at. And I'm looking at it and I was like, dude, at the pace that we're going, we're not going to make it. We're not going to even make it close. We need to pick up the pace.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
For anyone that's wondering, like me, is it a case of you needed closure and you needed to finish the trek in its entirety, or is it a case of you could get to a town and grab a cab and gain some ground?
Yeah, good question. No, it was in my mindset and in Jacob's mindset. I would say we're getting on the feet. We're going to do it the whole way, regardless. And we even discussed that if they get to Barcelona and arrive and we're late or what have you, then they can go visit Barcelona for the next few days if we don't make it. But no, we had every bit of our mind that we're gonna walk the whole thing.
Got it. So it was more about finishing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we get to Pamplona, and it was a question that Jay asked the last time, was mentioned if I'd forgotten something, and I did, and I blame Shaun. If our hats I put next to the table as we head out, and he was ready to go and headed out, and then I was still putting stuff in my backpack and everything, because at that point then you start to be smart to where the next town over, get your clothes that you're gonna wear on top, so you get there ready to take a shower and you're not siphoning through your bag and trying to get things together and whatnot. So I was doing all that. He leaves and I'm like, oh man, I need to hurry, put my backpack on, and I take off. My hat's there. So we're out of the door almost 6:45, 7 o'clock. Head out, start walking, and I don't realize I don't have my hat until we're like 2.5 hours in. So we're going through Pamplona, we go through the post office, and we're walking, and I start realizing it because the sun starts coming up and it starts beating on my head, and I'm like, I need to get my shades on, put my hat. Oh snap, I forgot my hat. And I did not want to say, guys, hold up or anything. I felt so bad to about pit of my stomach, and then finally it was just like, dude, we're at the edge of Pamplona, fixing to head out. I was like, Shaun, you're gonna hate me, bro. He's like, what's up?
What is it this time?
Exactly. So he's like, I forgot my hat. And he's like, you need to go get it. And I didn't want to leave it behind. I was just like, I'll just get another one. He's like, you need to go get it. So we're at a cafe. I said, man, y'all get a cup of coffee. I was like, man, if anything, I'll buy lunch. I mean, it's my fault. 2 hours into this, and we're stuck here. And I was like, I felt so bad. I left my backpack. Whistle for a taxi. He shows up, takes off, and he's like, okay, where to? I was like, we were staying at the Catedral Pamplona. And he was like, okay, yeah, I got you. Get in, take off. And I'm sitting there, man, we walked 2 hours, so I'm just going to take at least, I told Shaun, at least 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sitting there in the car, and he takes off 7 minutes later, and I'm like, dude, this looks familiar. And, all right, man, this is it. What? It's like 6 minutes into the cab ride, and we're at the hotel, right? So I'll run up, get the key,
For real?
open the door, grab my hat, get back in the cab, texting Shaun. He's barely finishing his cup of coffee. I show up there, and he was like, dude, you're back? I was like, dude.
3/4 miles later.
You see-
Sean goes, there went my break.
I was like, Sean, you see that building right there? Yeah. That's the hotel.
Oh
What
my
the-
And that's the bit of it, is that it's so different a mindset. So like here in the States or wherever you're from, you know, hey, I forgot a gallon of milk at the store or what have you. I got to go down the street to go pick up something. You hop in your car, you're down there 5 minutes and you're back. A whole lot different when you're walking.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we would get done with the day of the trek and have to figure out what to eat. Well, you know, you're not catching a cab or doing what have you. You're walking to the next spot to get. So I mean, really, you're picking what you want to eat based on how close it is proximity where you're laying your head that night.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, some of that being that in Spain, it's completely different than the States. Where in the States, you know, you can pretty much get food 24/7 for the most part, right? Except for the small towns. Well, in Spain, they're open early in the morning, and then from about, I would say 10 or 11 till 7:30 at night, they're closed. There's no one there. We'd walk through some of these towns, and they'd be completely ghost towns.
Really?
There would be nobody there. Literally just walking through the streets, you wouldn't see a soul walking the streets. They were out farming, doing what they were doing, and you really had to plan that out, because you would get to a town, and we'd be walking all day, and we get to our albergue, and we are starving. And there's nothing available.
Right.
It's over. So maybe a snack out of your backpack to hold you over, but they really don't get partying until about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night.
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very common. We would be in some villages where the kids and the families and so forth were out on the square eating, having a good time, and it was 11:30, 12 o'clock at night on a Tuesday night.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, very crazy for us. And getting up early and so forth, we needed to get as much rest as we could to walk.
Yeah.
So yeah, very odd.
That was the
So
hard part
interesting.
to start figuring out, is to get started in the morning early enough to where you get to a certain halfway point that has something to eat. Most often it's just a sandwich. It's not like you're gonna sit there and order. A lot of times you can even get a pizza or something like that. It was always either some kind of patata, what they call it is just a potato, like a quiche type scenario that they made in the morning, and it was left under a heat lamp, and that's what we would get to eat. I mean, at that point it was no longer like, hey, we need this, that, or the other. No, it was whatever was there. That's what we're gonna eat to replenish whatever we needed to get to our spot. Yeah.
I have to pause.
Okay.
Y'all have to talk into your mics, because Jay puts his lips on his, and that's what it
Yeah,
is.
your computer sounds different to me.
Y'all are just talking good into it, but Jay speaks on his mic, and I don't think I can undo this. So y'all have
Or
to.
I can just lean back, but it's
All right.
You won't. You'll go. He's used to doing that.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna cover my face just like.
It's just y'all were so uneven last time. I don't want it to be uneven this time.
Gotcha.
Your fault, Jacob.
I'm just hanging on Mega Mom. Got you ready?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so we've talked about a lot of good things, but talking about the food situation gets into kind of what your trials were. I know had a lot of foot issues. I know you had some sickness. I know we had a tough time finding a place to sleep, so kind of go through a little bit of that with us, kind of how it worked between the two of you.
Yeah, you want to take some of this, Jacob?
So it was Sean, the guy that would ahead of time would call the day before, or the day that we're getting it. He'd have a day ahead of us to try to figure out where we're going to stay and whatnot. But a lot of times, well, I don't say a lot of times, but there was a few times where we got to a spot and it was packed, and we assumed there was a spot, and it wasn't. So we had to figure out, talk to them, use some kind of charm, pull Sean up front or whatnot to get us a spot to sleep, So that kind of threw another wrench into the whole, hey, how we're gonna rest? We need to rest, and that was one of the biggest. How would you say? It was a piece of advice that a guy gave us that kind of blew our minds. Was like, dude, you suffer enough on the walk. Don't suffer to get sleep. You need to sleep because that's going to give you the energy for the next. It's simple, right? It's simple, but we were
Easy to get away from.
Easy to get away from, exactly. So that being said, then at that point, I mean, Shaun was ahead of the game, trying to, figure out our next spot. He'd get it. I would, make sure we'd call, I'd translate and whatnot, which worked out perfect. And Shaun was real good about the next town over. And the one thing that the chart, and I brought it with me this evening, was you can see where it kind of lays out the chart, in kilometers, town to town. So one thing we figured out was that when we left Roncesvalles was that the same 900 people were following this same chart. So when we would try to get to the next town that's on this chart, well, guess what? Those 900 and whatever people were already staying in these areas. So they were following the chart. So what we figured out was, well, guess what? Now that instead of walking 17 kilometers or 21 kilometers, we had to walk 26, 28 to get to the next town over.
Where there was open.
So where it was open.
To try to get ahead of the rush.
To get ahead of the rush.
But that did kind of fit a little bit where y'all wanted to pick up the pace.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it did. It did, and at the same token, gave us that extra. The following day, after walking the 26, 28 kilometers, we could walk 15 or 14, and that'll give us some kind of rest day, because instead of walking into town now at 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, we were walking into town at 3 or 4, and gave us an extra 2 hours that we were able to get in, take our shoes off, decompress a little bit, and then go get something to eat, as opposed to getting there at 7, taking a quick shower, go getting something to eat, and come back. Because that was the one thing. It was never to get to a spot and get a hitch a ride to go get something to eat. It was you walked your whatever 14, 16, 18 miles, and then guess what? You hungry? You got to get up, go walk to get something to eat. You go get something to eat, man, you're full, you feel good. Well, guess what? You got to walk to your back to your room to get rest, because you're going to do that same thing over again the next day.
That didn't help the foot situation.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think we laid a little bit of light to it before, but yeah, our feet were beat up, and there were different stages of the feet, I'd like to say. So, from the blister stage in the beginning, and I mean, everybody's had a blister on their foot before, but those that are hiking, oh my gosh, I mean, it's, if you go to our Instagram page, which is Texas Camino, there's a picture of Jacob's, one of his blisters, and I mean, it was the size of a thumb.
Yeah, I saw it the other day.
I mean, unbelievable. So, I mean, we were just getting blisters left and right, and then all of a sudden our feet were bruising, and I'm telling my wife, hey, it's not just blisters anymore that we're starting to figure out. Now our feet hurt. They were so bruised, it hurts to walk. And we have these thick Hoka shoes on, so they're really padded. It's not helping. And again, the roads, we walked on every road known to man, so cobblestones, rocks, everything like that. And after about 10 or 11 miles, you start to feel every rock underneath your foot. And my mom tells my wife, oh, well, I heard just go ahead and take, like maxi pads and stick them in the shoes to help.
Did you have any maxi pads?
Personally, I didn't have any on my person.
Jacob, did you?
I thought about bringing some with me, but I thought maybe there I would get them.
Because all those stores were open all the time.
Exactly.
At the 7-Eleven.
So I talked to my wife and I said, there is no way in hell I'm stacking
Standing in
pads
line with the maxi pad box
underneath my shoes and taking my shoes off every night. It's not happening. I'll deal with the bruised feet.
So what was interesting was that when we stayed in this albergue Juntanos, where we met this older couple, and we were telling them about our feet situation, and they were like, tip for you guys, Vaseline. Just
really
lather them up in Vaseline. And Shaun and I looked at each other like, that's gonna feel gross, slimy and whatnot once you put your socks on and whatnot. And they were like, once you put them on, you put your socks a few steps, you won't even feel the Vaseline anymore. And by goodness, that did not work.
That sounds lovely.
A godsend. Yeah.
We, like he said, layered the Vaseline on. We're not talking about like this little spread. I mean, it's like it's an ocean of Vaseline in your sock.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the time you got done walking, your feet were dry.
Did you think to bring any like Myoflex or Biofreeze or any? Y'all didn't have a tube of anything.
We got it there.
Yeah.
Did y'all?
Mm-hmm.
We ended up buying some CBD cream
Yeah.
there, which helped. I think it's quite significant. And it had a little bit of the tiger's balm, almost like
Yeah.
that burning sensation would have you
Yeah.
in it, that warming sensation. That helped tremendously. I think, and we were rubbing down our
Okay.
Not each
own
other's.
legs.
Like some
I
elevator
could see
music.
way ahead
and
where
we
this
cut
was
away.
going.
We cut away to the next chapter.
Jacob rub my calves.
Rub my patas.
But yeah, no, that worked wonders. It helped quite a bit as well. And again, it's I think we alluded to it the last podcast. It's a walk. It became a job. It really did. I mean, we had to mentally prepare ourselves in the morning, like you do to get up every morning, go to work, make sure we're equipped correctly, make sure we're ready for it, emotionally, physically, we're ready to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you guys, you reminded me just about something you said a second ago, but I've had several listeners message and ask about the movie again and where could they find the movie. So a lot of people have been even my sister listened to y'all's show and then immediately watched The Way right after.
That is
That's
so
awesome.
awesome.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and I'd love to hear what her thoughts are.
I'll ask
and I
her.
hope all listeners watch it because it is an excellent movie that flew underneath the radar. But
Yeah.
you'll get not only will you get an idea of what we went through, but you also see everything because everything that they walked were all areas that we walked, which is the Camino de Francis, and that's
Yeah.
we walked the French way, and
Wow.
that's what they walked in the movie.
That's awesome.
So something else we alluded to is Jacob's ability to speak Spanish. Heard it tonight, and my understanding is that you thought you had an altercation with a fellow that his Spanish speaking saved you some.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and obviously the only reason I brought Jacob is because he spoke Spanish.
Yes. And he rubs your
And he
calves.
rubs my calves. Yeah.
I rub a mean calf.
But
We thought
yeah.
it was weird when he told you that before the trip, but it worked out.
I mean, you get used to it. It is 29 days alone without the wife. But no, it's his Spanish was a godsend. It really did help us so much that not only for that purpose, and I'll explain that, but also for meeting people as well. And I'll let Jacob say a little bit about that. But yeah, we're in a city. I think it was. Do you remember the name of the town we were in that night? I don't think it matters. Maybe it was Leon.
No, it's going to be Logroño.
Okay, there you go. See, he's got better memory than I
Yeah.
do. And we're in there, and it's one of their big festivals. There's a ton of people, and I mean, the streets are packed like it's Mardi Gras. It is packed.
Really?
Packed. And I mean, there's full brass instrument bands walking up and down the street playing music. They're stopping, they're singing. Everyone in the streets are singing. It is phenomenal. Just
Yeah.
a sight to be seen. And everyone's drinking. So everyone's pretty loose, having a good time. And and I used to be a police officer for a while in my former life, and I tend to be pretty observant of things and people and what they're doing around me. And this guy is, in my mind, mad dogging me. He's just looking at me and he keeps staring at me, and it's not like a friendly, hey, my friend. It's like, hey, I'm gonna whoop your butt kind of thing. And I'm like, why me? Thinking to myself. And I could see him talking to a buddy of his. They're going back and forth looking at each other, and then he starts approaching me through the crowd, pushing his way through people. And my spider sense goes off. This guy's coming to me. I know he is. He's looking me right in the eye. I'm looking him in the eye. So I'm kind of like starting to get to the point where I'm in a more defensive position
Sure.
to protect myself. And he puts his hand on my chest, and he's talking to me. Obviously, I don't speak Spanish, so I'm thinking, and he's not got this friendly demeanor on his face. He looks like he wants to whoop my ass. So, and I'm like, well, hey, open up the can, let's see what happens. I'm ready to go. So I'm starting to clench my fist, thinking we're gonna go. And I'm looking at Jacob and looking him in the eye, going, hey, I'm about to knock this guy out. It's going down. And Jacob's kind of holding me back. He goes, no. And all of a sudden, Jacob busts out in this long line of Espanol, and they're going back, and this guy smiles. I go, okay, so he's smoothing the waters out. It came out. I had a CrossFit shirt on. We used to own a CrossFit gym. And he loved CrossFit, and he just wanted to talk talk about
He was so
CrossFit.
aggressively
Yeah.
passionate.
Exactly. He had
That's a
the-
part
he
of
was a
difference in
rogue.
a culture too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man,
It had a rogue shirt, the rogue shirt.
That's it. That's it.
Oh.
And so they know that they know that mark. I mean, right now CrossFit up there in Spain is like big what it was 2-3 years ago.
Sure.
Here in the
They
States,
got
so
there
they're-
now. Got it.
And so that was his deal. So he wanted to show his machismo to this guy's machismo, like say, hey dude, but he was telling him, man, you look strong, you're a big guy, eres fuerte. He was telling
He
him
was
"Eres
trash
fuerte."
talking you to razz you.
no, I think he was like
Complimenting.
Yeah, he was like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's
That's what I mean.
strong.
Just kind of like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, bro, let's go.
yeah.
He was like, you
What?
fuerte, you fuerte. He was
That's
pointing at his muscles
so
and telling him,
funny.
and he was asking me how much he lifts. I was like, I had to, butter up the story. Now this dude, he snatches like 450
Yeah.
pounds. You better watch yourself, you know.
Yeah.
But those guys, after we got there and talked to him and laughed about the whole situation, because I told him, dude, it looked like you wanted to fight this guy.
Yeah.
He was like, no, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And so we asked those guys, hey, we're looking for a spot to eat. We hadn't eaten, and he was like, all right, keep walking another, 3 or 4 restaurants there to the right. That's the spot to go, right? So we get to that spot, and man, it was another godsend. It was like the best food.
Really?
I mean, at that point, they were just bringing plates of food, and we were like, just bring it, whatever you have. And I told the waitress, bring us beer, bring us drinks, bring us wine, bring us, and she was just bringing stuff. And
Bring
she,
us snails.
they were just so
Yeah.
I knew what they were bringing out. They brought mussel mejillones, they brought out shrimp,
Uh-huh.
they brought out steaks, and it was just all like appetizers. I forgot the tapas, and so they brought them all out. And man, Shaun is just, we haven't eaten. Shaun is eating, and I'm not gonna tell him what he's eating.
Because
Right.
Shaun is a meat and potatoes man.
Eating potatoes. If you know this guy, just, I mean, if it looks weird, he's not gonna even try it. But this guy, we were so hungry at that point, whatever it was, he was just chowing down. He's like, man, that's good. Oh man, that's good. Have you tasted this? This is good. We eat it after we ate everything. We were so full. He's like, hey, Shaun, you know what that was? He's like, what was it? You ate mussels and you ate some snails. What?
Man.
Wow.
Was
Hunger
it
will do a
good?
lot of things, huh?
Listen,
Listen.
I'll admit it was okay. I was hungry.
I mean, it was so good that the soup that it was in. I mean, Shaun was ripping bread and slopping up the soup.
Let's not get all out of control. All right.
So y'all have walked a long ways, and it's been tough. And so Jess always says when somebody tries to tell you about something you know about, it kind of irritates her. And so were there people that came on the trail at a different distance and started in with y'all, and how'd you feel about that after everything you've been through?
Yeah, so I guess the cool thing about the Camino is that there's different tracks, different ways of doing the Camino, and there's different starting points as well. So, we started in France, so we did the Frances and the long way. Well, you can come in different sections and walk, and the shortest route that you can walk and get your Compostela, showing that you walked the Camino, was 100 kilometers. And it's interesting when you're walking, you soon to find all these people that you walk with and so forth, and you get to know pretty much the people. You see them every 2 days. You'll see someone there, what have you. And there'll be any given time there might be 20 people walking around. There might be no people walking around. Well, we found the day that we got up and got to the 100-kilometer marking, all of a sudden it looks like it's Disneyland. There's 80 to 100 pilgrims walking, and they're all in their fresh gear. They're taking pictures of every little flower and stone, and we're beyond this point now. They call so there's a long stretch called the Meseta, which is just all dirt, farmland, and so forth. And someone said that you can tell the real pilgrims by the dirt of the Meseta still on their gear and on their legs.
Wow.
And these people are shiny, brand new,
Yeah.
taking selfies every little spot.
Yeah.
And it's
moving so slow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they don't have a destination. They just started. and
They
we're
haven't
like,
got down to business yet. Huh?
There's still hope in their eyes.
Oh yeah, the glimmer of hope.
They hadn't asked the cow for milk yet.
So it was, you're excited for them, right? But it's also a little annoying because
Yeah.
you've been, some of the really difficult sections and so forth. You've cut,
Especially the first
cut your
day.
teeth. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially the first
For sure.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've cut your teeth. You've earned your badge, right? Of walking the Meseta, walking these tough routes, and tough spots, and they're like I said, it's like Disneyland. Everyone's walking, holding hands, singing songs.
Yeah.
Get out of my way.
Right.
Sean reminded me of one. We were tired that morning. We sat down to get something to eat, and there was a group of kids. I would say they were younger than us, and they're out there singing songs. And there was this one particular person was singing all out of key, like she wanted to sing higher than everybody else, and it was a Imagine Dragons song that they were singing. I even forget what it was, and at this point I was already so irritated. And then I was like, man, who sings that song? And somebody was like, Imagine Dragons. Well, let them sing it. Don't go in it. Because you just like, shut up,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I had a good laugh at that actually. The lady behind got up and walked away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys have been on here too long.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you move from kind of the parts that, not saying they were bad, but just different, to the more positive stuff, like one story y'all told about finding the guy's hat.
Yeah.
And what that led to, and the relationship that brought.
Yeah, this story was actually in our first episode. It was our favorite part
Yeah.
of the first episode, and it didn't make it into the final cut. It didn't record.
Yeah.
So we were this was our main thing we wanted to make sure and go back over.
And this is my wife's favorite part, favorite story of the whole thing as well. And it was a special day. It was a special day because that day, that morning, actually I should say the night before, there was, the listeners remember the very first day was terrible for me particularly. It was really bad. Well, there's a second Parodies, they call it. It was a second section that was pretty bad. And remember, we're hauling butt now. We got to make it. We have a date that we have to hit. So Jacob and I are going over the map the day before, and we're looking at each other. And I said, look, we have a pretty gnarly uphill, and then there's a pretty gnarly downhill as well. Most people break it up. It was, what was it, 26 miles that day?
Yes.
I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to do it? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, please say you don't want to do it. Please.
Yeah.
And of course, if you know Jacob's like, yeah, man, let's do it.
You
Let's go.
keep
We got
asking
it."
him,
Yeah.
did you say you
Are you sure?
did you want to?
Yeah.
As he's shaking his head, no.
Yes.
You want to do this,
Oh,
right?
you don't.
Oh man! And we stayed in this just beautiful little village, right on the water. We stayed in a private, a pension, which is a private place that this guy owned. It was like a condo. It was beautiful little
Beautiful.
spot that we
You wanted
got
to stay
into.
there.
Oh, it
Yes.
was wonderful, and I hated it. And I hated it because I was dreading the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just dreading. I couldn't sleep.
Couldn't enjoy it.
Couldn't enjoy a thing about it. So we got up uber early, pitch black outside, enough to where we have to have headlamps on. We couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And we're walking up the road, and off in the distance we see something on the side of the road on basically on the fog line. And Jacob says, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know. And we can just kind of get a glimmer of it through our headlamps. And as we get closer, we're trying to determine, is this a little animal? Is it a cat? What is this thing? And as we get closer, it's a hat. It's a fedora hat, and it was cream in color. And so I lost one of my hats or what have you, and most people on the Camino, if someone drops something or whatever, they'll carry it with them to the next spot and see if anyone has it. So we kind of stood there like a couple idiots looking at this hat standing on the side of the road. I said, Jacob, tie this thing onto my backpack. We'll carry it with us. We'll ask on our way. So Jacob attaches it to the backside of my backpack, kind of on the outside, and boom, we're off again. We're walking. Going up the hill, walking into people. Hey, did you lose a hat? No. Hey, did you lose a hat? No. So we reach we're going uphill, and again, it's a little bit easier because we've been walking now for, a couple weeks now. But it's still miserable. It's a walk. And there's this guy by himself on the side of the road. And he looks sad. I mean, he literally looks, just like his worst day. I'm thinking, okay, this guy's having a rough time going up the hill as well.
Him too.
Yeah, right. So I said, hey, did you lose a hat? Right. It's a question because I'm like, hey, I got this hat in my mind, right? And he is an Italian guy, and in kind of broken English, he goes, yeah, I lost a hat. And he kind of looks at the ground, and this guy looks like he's going to cry.
Uh-huh.
And so he's not putting two and two together. I said, no. I said, are you missing a hat? Did you lose a hat? And at this point, I turned my back to him enough to where the hat's on the outside, and he sees it. And this kid leaps off the ground. Oh my God, you're my savior. Oh my God, oh my God. He's crying. He's crying. He's crying. And
Shaun's crying.
I'm crying. Jacob and I, so the three of us, three idiots, are hugging each other, jumping up and down that we found this guy's hat. And there's a story behind the hat, but his excitement about that hat was such a relief for me because I was struggling that day.
It was a pivot point.
It was. It lifted this dark cloud off of my head, and I was just so excited about getting this guy's his hat back. But the cool story about the hat is that he started with a gentleman who was the owner of that hat, and they were walking, and this older gentleman was struggling, so the kid gave him his walking sticks. And the gentleman was able to make it a little bit further down the road with the walking sticks, but a few days later, he had to quit. He couldn't make it. And so what he ended up doing was he took his hat off his head and gave it to the kid and said, hey, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob.
You're good.
He said, hey, take this hat with you and carry it with you along the Camino to carry a piece of me with you. So I feel like I completed the Camino. And when you get to the end, the hat will be yours. And so this kid loses this guy's hat.
Yeah.
And is devastated, right? To the point where he calls him on the phone to say, he says, he's like, I'm so sad. I'm calling this guy and telling him I lost his hat. He's telling me it's okay, what have you. But, all of a sudden here comes, Goofy Shaun up the road that's dragging my feet and whatnot, and I've returned this hat to him.
Yeah.
We saw him, 2-3 more miles down the road, and he was still like, "Oh my gosh, here comes my savior," and so forth. I mean, it was such a great moment. And as much as we were a savior, Jacob and I were a savior for him, he was a savior for us to help push us up that lake, and that energy carried us up that hill, across the plateau, which was a long plateau, a flat spot we had to, and gosh darn it, we ran down the mountain on the other side. We ran down the mountain to a point to where when we got to a cafe, we saw one of the pilgrims that we met, and she walks over, hey, how you doing? She goes, hello. And she goes, can you believe it? So listen, there were two pilgrims that were running down the mountain, and Jacob and I look at each other and goes, yeah. She goes, they're just crazy. They could have broke their ankles and blah blah blah. Yeah, that was us. But it was so steep. We just and our knees and our feet and our ankles and everything were hurting, and it was shale on the downside. It truly, for me and Jacob, we both decided it was easier with us and all our weight and backpack was to kind of run down the mountain instead of shuttle step the whole way down, just beating up the.
I love
there were
it.
people looking at us on the way as we were passing them and writing down. They thought we weren't showing off. We were just trying not to beat
Yeah.
ourselves up anymore.
Beat ourselves up and get to the destination quick.
Just
Right.
think what that guy would have said when you had that road shirt on if he
Yeah.
saw you do that.
Right.
I know, right?
Yeah. That's a CrossFit man right there.
Down at the bottom of the mountain with his arms crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just little stuff like that to people listening that maybe want to do the Camino or any kind of walk. I mean, you leave yourself open to something like that, and just that little boost that you give somebody a hope that they lost.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that right there, that boosted us. I mean, like I said, in episode 1, it's little things
Oh yeah.
that help. You know, and like I said, I mean, when those guys took us from Roncesvalles, I was like, we're gonna do it, we're gonna make it, right? And the same thing happened when we were in what was that? Dadgummit, I had it and I lost it.
You sound like me now.
But you guys really did strip everything down to life in its purest form, to where
Absolutely.
those little shots of connection were so much more gigantic.
Yes.
I don't think if that would have happened at the gym or at work, it
Yeah.
would have just been this little in passing moment. It wouldn't have fueled you the way
Yeah.
it did. I think that is really neat. And so it shows you truly how God has designed us.
Absolutely. Now I remember, because when we left, we got to Pamplona. We were gonna take a bus from Pamplona to St. John to start the walk. I'm sorry, Madrid. Got the train, got it to Pamplona, from Pamplona to St. John. We were gonna catch a bus, and we go to this like academy on steroids type. What's it called? The decathlon.
The decathlon.
And we get stuff that we're gonna need and whatnot. Sean buys some stuff, I buy some stuff, and then we're walking back to the bus stop, maybe to get a catch a bus or catch a taxi. And as we're walking out of the store, we see a taxi go by, and I whistle, and he's got his windows up and he drives off.
You do have quite the whistle.
And that's interesting, because there's a story behind it. And the next taxi driver comes by and he's got his windows down halfway, and I whistle at him, and he's maybe 20 yards, 25
No,
yards.
it's more than that.
And he hears me, and he looks, and just that split second we made eye contact, he looks back around and he comes to pick us up. And when he gets there, we're like, hey, where y'all want to go? And I was like, we need to get to St. John. And he was like, oh, dude. I was like, I know, man. We can catch a bus if you can take us to the bus stop. And he was like, no, man, you don't get it. The bus left at 1, and there's only one bus now that leaves because of the COVID and everything. They don't have buses like before. It's just one bus, and it leaves at 1. At this point, it's 3:30.
Wow.
He's like, there's nobody running anymore. He said, well, is there a way you can take us? He was like, it's 3:30. My time ends at 5:30. You want me to take you an hour and a half to St. John, drop you off, and then come back with one trip when I can stay here and make 3 or 4 trips,
Yeah.
make more money? We're like, man, we can pay you. Look, and at this point, he sees our backpacks and everything. He was like, you're doing the Camino? I was like, yes. He was like, put your stuff in the car, let's go.
Really?
So he takes us, and he had an awesome time taking us to St. John, because now he's telling us his story, because
Yeah.
he's walked the Camino to a certain, not all of it, just certain points, and he's telling us, look, y'all gonna walk through, you see this mountain chain, y'all gonna be walking through here, y'all gonna be doing this,
Yeah.
and then there's some other pilgrims walking the road, and he was like, listen, if you fellas see yourself on the road, you're done. The Camino does not go through the road. These people are endangering themselves and endangering the people on this road. You do not want to see yourself on the road. So if you see yourself on the road, you need to turn around and get on the trail, because that's going to take you where you need to go. And I mean, just showing us in
Yeah.
beautiful sights that he's showing us. He was like, man, all this is you see the trees and the flowers and everything. Man, it's more vibrant than this. We just not had enough rain. We've had no rain, but it was still green. I mean, you remember that. It
Yeah.
was like still luscious. And he was like, no, what y'all see is just a little bit of
Yeah.
what we see whenever it's in full bloom, guys.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and taking us through the back roads and stuff like that. And he was just showing us, and it was awesome. And he takes us to our destination, and it wasn't even, I don't even remember how much it was, but it wasn't like broke the bank or anything like that. And I think we even tipped him even a little
Yeah.
bit more, and he was like, no. He's like, no, man, thank you for
Yeah.
doing this for us. And he was like, oh, man, buen camino. Y'all have a good time and enjoy it.
Right.
It. And he was like, I'd like to know at the end of the journey what it's going to be for y'all, but y'all going to have an awesome
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And just stuff like that, little
The
things.
connection.
The
Yeah.
That
connections.
was valuable.
They're
Yeah.
also proud of their country. They're also proud of the Camino, the meaning behind it, and so forth. And almost every citizen in Spain has walked some portion of that Camino and
Yeah.
so forth. So it's deep rooted in their culture. So they're all excited when they see pilgrims. I mean, we're like rock stars walking that thing.
Yeah.
For
That's
them.
awesome.
They love to see us. They love
That's
that.
so
They love to
interesting.
share their culture and their experience with us, which is hard to do when you don't speak Spanish, but
Yeah.
real easy to do when you got Jacob who speaks fluent
Yeah.
Spanish. And it's
Right.
helped us so much.
Right.
So for every trial and tribulation you had, to me, it's like a 10x something inspirational. And one of the main stories y'all told me that I thought was the neatest was the guy you found walking, the old guy that
Mhm.
night. That was one of the first stories y'all told me. So tell us about that.
Yeah. so remember Jacob said that we spoke to a couple and they told us about the Vaseline on the feet and so forth.
Yeah.
Well, that couple, it was a hostel that we stayed at that it was a dorm style hostel, and there was probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 people in that dorm, and we had dinner at a small table with that older couple, which is pretty cool. This older couple hears this podcast and so forth. They flew back early to go to the United States to work for Porsche, which they are head engineers to make the first flying Porsche, which is
Wow.
pretty crazy. But that wife was sick, and she was really sick, and she was playing it off. And during the court, I keep looking at Jacob during dinner, going, this lady's sick. This ain't good.
For real.
And I'm sitting right next to her, and we finished the meal. I look at Jacob and said, "I'm gonna get sick. I just know it. I know I'm gonna get sick." And she, again, playing it off. And the next day we walk, and we happen to stumble upon her, and she looks like something out of a movie, like Contagion or something.
Does
like
she?
that. I mean,
The red.
nose is red, eyes are red, blood's
Yeah.
coming out of her eyes,
Sure,
like tears. I mean,
sure.
It was bad. She was full blown.
She has a hazmat suit on.
So bad, so sick. So, anyways, of course, a couple days down the road, we're one of the evenings we're laying in bed, getting ready to go to bed, and I am full on shivering, covered in covers and so forth. And Jacob's out there hanging out in his boxers with his hands over above his head and relaxing. And I said, "Dude, are you cold?" He goes, "No." And I'm like, "Oh, Jacob, I'm sick." "Don't you say that. Don't you say that." Well, the next morning I was sick.
Really?
Really, really sick.
What day is this? About.
It's about midway.
Midway, yeah.
Yeah. And it's in the Meseta, so it's, again, the Meseta is known as this like kind of Death Valley-ish area where there's not a lot to see, you're just grinding it. And so that day I'm sick, wake up the next day, get to the destination, and I'm trying to walk our mileage because we got to pick up the pace, and we get to a little cafe to get a little quick bite to eat, and it was supposed to rain that day, and we're sitting at this. It's cool. This cafe had the garage door style roll-ups, and you can see it starting to sprinkle. I look at Jacob, like, I'm done. It's over.
Really?
I'm not going to walk in the rain. I feel terrible. And Jacob talks to the lady. He says, "Do you have any space?" Yes.
It has one room.
One room.
How much have you walked this day?
Not even 10 miles.
Not even 10 miles that day.
Yeah.
He was feeling lousy.
But still, that's so much.
Yeah.
I mean-
I know. I don't think about it.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh my
Right.
gosh.
Back to Melissa while we're sick.
Right. But-
Right?
That's awesome.
I didn't even think about it like that. But yeah.
So I go in and I curl up in bed and I'm out. I mean, literally, I'm the whole day I sleep. And Jacob, I get up, I eat lunch. I'm drinking that, the sports drink, trying to
Aquarius.
the Aquarius, thank you, trying to recover, what have you. The next day, we wake up and I am not only feeling worse, I feel the sweats, the whole bit. And I look at Jacob and I said, I'm like, dude, I'm going to have to take a taxi to the next town. I'm too sick. And Jacob's like, you look bad. You need to take a taxi, do it. And I said, yeah, I'm just going to take a taxi. That's the best way. Is there anything you want me to take with you? And I feel terrible because I came there to walk, not take a taxi, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so get my stuff together, and then Jacob, and I said, you want me to take your backpack with you, with me, so you could just walk without the backpack, move faster by yourself? No, I'm going to take my backpack. Okay, so he's getting his stuff together, packing it, he's putting his shoes on, and and I'm looking at him, and I'm just sitting on the edge of the bed, and I'm like, damn it, that's it. I didn't say damn it, by the way. Tied up my shoes. I said, I'm going. He said, no, Shaun, don't go.
I thought you were going to say he got in a taxi with you.
Oh, no. He's like, we're going. Let's go. And I'm like, he's going, no, you need a ride. No, we're going. Let's go. So I got up. I had Apple AirPods with me. It's the first time that I put them in. It was a terribly windy day. Cold, extremely cold. In fact, the waitress was commenting. She goes, "It is so cold. I've never seen it this cold." So I feel like crap. It's super cold. It's blown like 15, 18 miles an hour outside. I can feel it to where it's like hurting my ears, my eardrums. So I put my AirPods in, and Jacob and I start walking down this long stretch of road. Just nothing except a grove of trees, and a grove of trees that you walk around that is for miles, 8, 9, 10 miles of just the same scenery. And as we're walking, there's this older, you see this like the road workers wear, the green with the shiny vest with the reflective vest.
Yeah.
There's this older gentleman walking along the road with a stick, and he's just going. And we're like, at this point, we're like 5, 6 miles away from the town. And when I say there's nothing, literally, there is nothing out there. It's just road. And we get closer to this guy. His head's kind of cocked to the side, and he's just trucking along. This guy's got to be
130?
Stop.
This dude is older than the Camino. And he's trucking along, and we say Buen Camino, talk to him, and Jacob stops and talking to him and so forth and having a conversation. He says he's not walking the Camino. He's just getting out and getting exercise. Every day he gets up and he walks until he gets tired.
Yeah.
Turns around and walks back home. Again, we're 6 miles away from the town, so this dude's just trucking, right?
Yeah.
And so anyhow, Jacob talks to him and said, typical Jacob, hey, can we get a photo with you? Cool. Jacob, wraps his arm. I feel like crap, so I do kind of like a long selfie. It gets me in it, and Jacob give him like a side hug and smiling, and this guy's looking down at the ground and not really looking at the camera, but whatever, we didn't care. We just figured he's an old guy. So it just was really amazing to us.
Well, see you later.
Yeah, adios, right? So funny bit is we, I think, a couple days later, we get to town, and we meet up with a couple of buddies on the Camino.
Ron and Jamie.
And these guys from Australia. Great guys. We have a great time. And just busting on each other left and right, which makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so we walk around the corner to where we're going to stay, and they're sitting at this little cafe having a beer, and we come around the corner. And one of the coolest things, they're both like, Texas! Which is so cool.
Yeah.
And, and we're...
So nice.
Yeah, and I'm yelling, good day! And
Akadaka.
my worst Australian accent I could come up with. And so we end up, hey, we'll come back, drink a beer. We end up going out to dinner. We're sitting at the dinner table, we're talking, and we start talking about, our trek, and we come across this older gentleman, and they're like kind of looking at us as we're telling the story, and we're talking about it. Jacob's explaining to this guy, and they're saying, well, we ran into a guy like that as well, right? And so we're starting to compare notes here, and it turns out it's the same guy. And the funny thing is that we didn't pick up on And I'm going to say because I was
Stop.
sick, but Jacob is just not observing.
He has no excuse.
I mean, I was talking to him.
This guy, ladies and gentlemen, is blind.
He was blind.
100%
How could you
blind.
not know, Jacob? Sean was sick.
I was talking
Ron
to him,
and
and
Jer-
he was.
Ron and Jamie, you guys are, I know, rolling right now when you're listening to this. They were the base. I remember hearing Ron's like, "Are you guys idiots? You guys are messing with me. You guys are idiots."
So Sean takes out his phone and he's going. Look, and as we're talking, Sean's looking through his pictures
Yeah.
and whatnot, and he holds it up.
He's won't proof of
He says,
it.
"Hey, Rod, is this the guy?"
Yes, I mean,
That's
just
wild.
oh.
And
Does it make sense now?
Yes, because now you look at the
Thinking
picture.
back.
You look at the picture. His eyes is all like.
Jacob,
cross-eyed.
please stop.
They are
Jacob,
he's not
Jacob,
looking.
Not a
I
great
mean,
visual, but thanks.
Jacob.
Yeah. He is literally, his head is down because the dude's blind.
He's blind,
The stick,
man.
His walking stick is his stick for him for sensory reasons to notice where the road
Nothing
touches
gets
the
past
gravel.
you guys.
Nothing, man.
So Ron and Jamie said that that when they're walking, again out in the middle of nowhere, they come across this gentleman, and he's actually in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And so they're thinking he's having some kind of medical emergency,
Yeah.
something's going, and they're trying to steer him back. They don't speak Spanish, they speak G'day. And so they're trying to communicate with this guy. And this lady drives by, and they're like trying to communicate with the lady, say, "Hey, this older gentleman, I think he needs help." And she yells out something like, "Hey, what's going on, Bob?" And the blind guy's like, "Oh, just going out and getting my walk."
Stop.
And walks on, and so they just kind of leave him and walk
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
It's like he's like a pillar of the community.
Oh,
They
I
seem to
love
do this
it.
every single time.
I
but-
love it.
Oh my gosh, we had such the biggest laugh about this thing, and it was just one of the funniest moments I think we had
Yeah,
on the Camino.
I could
just laughing
imagine.
at we're just a bunch of idiots.
That
We
is
really are.
so funny.
So, moving forward, I mean, obviously you're a little delirious because you didn't notice the guy was blind. But you've obviously also gotten stronger too. So, you're probably 3/4 of the way through. Your wives are there to meet you.
Yeah.
Y'all get this thing trimmed down. And, what's the last day like, the build up, knowing that, you're getting close to
that's a
getting
good
done
question.
and what what you're looking forward to. Not only are you going to finish this walk, but you got your wives
That's a
waiting.
good question. That's exciting.
It is, so it's funny today because when you're walking, it's like I want to be done. Again,
that
this is-
end is the toughest part.
It is, and it's a job, and you're strutting, you're moving through, and I didn't care. I mean, it's just like we've smelt and that's why partially probably because it was so annoying seeing the 100-kilometer pilgrims because they're so joyous and happy and so forth. We're beat up.
Yeah.
You're having a little trouble finding joy.
A lot of
Absolutely.
trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just want to rock it out, but
Yeah.
I think I heard about it, or read about it, I should say, on the pilgrim pages and so forth. But what's really cool is when there's a couple of key things that you see when you finally reach Santiago de Compostela. One is a big sign outside that's it's like a floral kind of thing that says the sign, so you're close. The other thing which is really neat is right before you walk into the square with the big church where St. John's body is and everything like that, there's basically a big archway that you have to walk through to enter the square. And every day, no matter rain, shine, what have you, they have a guy in there with bagpipes that is playing.
Wow.
And it's echoing. It just sounds amazing. It's like an echo chamber. It sounds amazing, but you can hear it for hundreds of yards away, and so you can just kind of, as a Jacob, you hear that, you just barely hear it, and you know that you're getting close to the end. And it's so cool walking up and seeing that guy playing the bagpipes, and you're like, it's it. You don't even know how to feel because it's there's so many emotions.
I told Sean, man, they better not be playing Amazing Grace. They better not be playing.
But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty, there's no tears from me, none from Jacob. I think when we were there on the square, I think it was just because we were in awe that it was finished. One of the guys, John, that we walked with, we saw him on there, and he was streaming tears. I know that talking to some of the other pilgrims that we walked through with, Julia, Ahmed, not Ahmed, but they had some kind of emotion tied to it and so forth, and it took me a while to unpack it and kind of feel how I felt. But it's definitely, awe-inspiring being into this big, huge church, the bells, the like I said, the music playing and everything like that, and then realizing that the journey is done.
Aww.
It's the finality of it, I guess, and you're happy that it's done, but at the same time, you're like, is this really the end? Are we done? Kind of.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain.
Do you mind going back, Shaun? Someone to ask you a minute ago. Do you have the personality kind of similar to mine, where if you would have taken that taxi, would it have negated?
Yes.
Me too. If I set out to run 2 or 3 miles, if I walk for 5 seconds, I might as well not have gone that day.
Yeah, it was a, our goal was to walk the whole thing and so forth. And we did take taxis, when we had to go taxi out to go to a place to stay, but we took a taxi back to where we started from to
For
continue
principle.
from there. Sure.
I get it.
But-
Are you that way, Jacob?
Yes.
You are?
That's what.
I
that's
think
what
I know
made
you
me-
are.
Yeah, that's what made me want to finish, because we had already invested that much. I couldn't cheat it, I guess you could
Even though
say.
that doesn't make sense. If you
Yeah.
would have taxied that tiny bit, that wouldn't have meant shit for it.
Yeah.
It would have been fine.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's
But-
and it's their and that's the whole thing. Getting back to it's your Camino and
Yeah.
so forth. And in one of our
There's no rules.
No, and one of our friends, Julie, she got really sick and on the Camino, enough to where she had to spend 3 days off, and other people as well, where she had to take a taxi to some of the parts and so forth. And I think she even kind of beat herself up a little bit about
Yeah.
it. And I told her many times during that trek where we would run into her again or what have you, that don't beat yourself up. You had to at that point and so forth. And there's nothing you do. You can't take it away
The
from them
intention
because
matters.
of that.
That's my blanket,
Yeah.
as you could say, because that's going to give me some kind of comfort. I needed.
Yeah.
What's that? The Peanuts kid with the
blanket. Linus.
That Linus. That was me. I needed that. But going back to the question again, you feel it ending type scenario. You do want it to end, but then you don't.
Yeah.
And it's at that point when the little stories like I'm telling you, that the taxi cab to Pamplona, finding room when there is no room, starts coming up. It brings back the memory, and then you begin to think, wow, there was something out there looking out for us.
Yeah.
Like when we got to and this is one that's really sticks out to me. When we get to Puente La Reina, Shaun had already reserved us like a tent in this park out there, and right outside Puente La Reina. It was like a 3/4 of a mile or a mile away from the town. And we get to Puente La Reina at 7. We haven't eaten. We're starving. We find a place to eat. Finally, at 7:30, we ordered something. We're trying to contact this place with these tents.
Hold on one second. Let me clarify for the listeners. This isn't a little one-man tent.
Exactly. I'm sorry.
We're not cuddling. It's a big canvas tent.
It's like a yurt, pretty much like a yurt. It's big. So there's two. Yeah. Anyways, so I call this place, but I don't get a hold of anybody, and I leave a message with my number because they got Shaun's number. Well, they texted Shaun, and the person that's in charge leaves him a message through a text that if you're not here by 8:30, I'm gone. There's no way that you can contact me to give you the key. If you're not here by that time, you're out, right? So we don't see that until after we finish eating, and it's 8:15, and it's still a mile away. And I start calling taxis, that nobody's answering, nobody's around. Finally called this one taxi lady, and she was like, I'll be there in 15 minutes. Well, at that time, it's already 9 o'clock. And she shows up in 15 minutes, and it's 9. and we tell her, hey, it's this place, it's their tents, and oh, I know what you're talking about. I know that albergue. I'll take you to it. Took us to this albergue, and it's not the one that Shaun has reserved. There's no place there to stay. She gets off, and there's like, there's no room, absolutely no room. And Shaun was like, no, this isn't the spot. The spot is this, and we bring it up on his the internet or whatever on your phone, and she sees the place that we're staying. She's the name, and she was like, oh, I know that spot. She grabs her phone, dials a number, and calls the person that owns.
She's like, my
that
brother
park.
owns that.
Yes, owns that park. At this point, it's 9:45, and she calls this guy. And she calls this person, and she's like, yeah. And she's talking to him in Spanish. Tengo estos dos muchachos que andan buscando. Sí, Shaun Hiller. As soon as I hear that, I was like, this is the spot. This is the spot. She knows exactly.
Yeah.
See. And he was like, I'll be there in 15 minutes. You have somebody outside because I'm bringing them to you.
Wow.
We get there at that point. It's 10:15 at night.
Yeah.
Our clothes. We're at the last of our clothes. We have no more change of clothes.
Yeah.
We have nothing. We get to that spot. Somebody's out there with the key. Get our keys. They give us coins to wash our clothes. It's 11:30 at night, and we're sitting there washing our clothes, whistling Dixie, all happy because now we got a spot to rest our heads.
Right.
I have to ask though, does the tent have a key?
Yeah,
It
does
does,
it?
does,
I was
yeah.
asking
Wow.
that
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Could you have broken into said tent?
No, because it's zipped, and that zipper on the bottom, it's got
Wow.
some kind of loop or something that
Someone could cut their way in. But,
Yeah.
but it was a very large tent.
It was a very large tent. But see, stuff like that at the end of the road, you begin to put one and one together, and it's like, man, there's no way that, because that when that taxi driver got there to pick us up, my backpack had the shell that you get when you start to walk. It's a shell that they recognize you as a Pellegrino with that
The scallop.
the scallop.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I was going to the taxi, my bag for whatever reason slid down my shoulder and fell on the ground, and it broke my shell, my scallop, but it created an M on my scallop.
Yeah.
And the lady, I was like, man, it broke my scallop, and she picked it up for me, and she was like, man, what do you have in here? Right? And when she saw the scallop, it was an M. He's like, hey, that's an M for Maribel. That's my name.
Oh.
I was like, oh, that's cool. That's
I
right.
like that.
So just once we got to the town, I'm trying to remember Asur or
Yeah, I
something like
think you're
that.
right. Mhm.
That's the last town before we were like this 14 kilometers away, 7 miles from Compostela, and I don't want to go to sleep. I'm like, I don't want this to end. I don't want this to come to a conclusion, because all these little miracles that are happening to us, I want them to continue.
Aw.
You know, I want them to keep going, because I mean, it was just stuff, one thing after another after
Yeah.
another that you know led us to feel, hey,
Yeah.
we're gonna make it, and now we're at the point where we are. And then you go back to the story that what the Camino was when they were bringing John the Great from Jerusalem, and they're walking him back. And I tell Shaun at the beginning, when you're tired and you're going up hills and elevation changes and whatnot, I told Shaun one day, I was like, man, we couldn't have been on that detail bringing him back, because how did they bring him? Did they bring him in a box? I said, at that point, we'd have been, look, fellas, this box is kind of tedious to carry. You know, we got to take turns. I said, let's cut him up. You'll take the arm, you take the arm, and then who's gonna know? You know,
Right.
it was just joking around like that. I was like, but there's no way, you know, we could have been on that detail, because that would have been an idea that we would have come up with, and we got to make this load lighter type scenario.
Yes.
We'll piece them back together.
We'll piece them back together when we get there.
Yes.
You know, but as they're bringing James the Great, you know, they're with him for whatever reason. You know, you still have the time with him and whatnot, and now you're about to take him to his resting place, and now the job that you were meant to do is coming to an end.
Yeah.
You don't want it to end, because you're with this guy that's the brother of Jesus, that, you know, they held in high esteem, and this, that, and the other. Now it's and I felt like that with us.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't have James the Great with us at all, but it was the time that the 9 days that Shaun and I, we had a routine. We had this going. He looked out for me, and I looked out for him. You know, it was just, that's coming to a conclusion now. and I didn't want it.
Well,
to end.
and per the first episode, Jacob, just finding out what that meant, finding your why that while you were there, and the feelings that you had, that's where your family started.
That's where family
I just
started.
think of your ancestors made that trip with you. They were with you.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
that was the biggest thing that kept me going, because after Pamplona, getting to Burgos, that was we spoke to like 3 different people, and I would show them the picture of my great grandfather, and they see it, and automatically they were like, "This guy's the Basque country. It's Vasco. Tú eres Vasco." They would tell me, "Tú eres Vasco." And
Wow.
it was like, man, it was like, and one of the guys,
Wow.
he was real big in like the history, and what really grasped my attention is that the people out there, they worry about their ancestry.
Sure.
They know, because their farmlands, their vineyards, their ranches, their haciendas, it stayed in the family since whatever amount of time, since the
Yeah.
11th century,
Yeah.
10th century. And this guy that we spoke to, the owner of this albergue, when I told him about what I was doing, he had his laptop up, and he was going into it, and he was telling me about it, because my grandfather's great grandfather's last name is Amaya, and Amaya is it's in the northern part of Spain, which is the Basque community. And he was like, "Do know it is Andalusia," which is, I may be saying it wrong or whatnot, but he was like, "No, Andalusia, in Spanish he said, ellos están fregados," meaning they're kind of like low on the totem pole, but the northern part of the Basque country, that's the not the upper echelon, but they're well off.
Yeah.
And the way the great grandfather looks, he looks like he comes from something like that, because I mean, he's got his little handkerchief, and he's dude up. And so
Right.
he's telling me, once you get to Burgos, you're gonna get to the archives, and that's where you're gonna find out where your family originated from. And we get to Burgos, and we get there, and it's 5 in the afternoon, or in the evening, and it's closed. The next day is Saturday, can't get into it. But one of the taxi driver was like, "You can go to the police station and maybe find something out there."
Yeah.
I was like, "Let's go." So he takes me to the police station, and it was something awesome, because I go into the police station, and these guys are on their post, and I walk in. I'm like, man, for whatever reason, I'm just gonna come in and tell them my story. And I get to the first guy, and he looks at me like, "What are you doing here? What do you want?"
Yeah.
Type scenario. And I start telling them what I'm doing, and I just want to find my family tree, and this, that, the other. And once I told him I was doing the Camino, the 2 other guys left their post to come talk to me. So for like 15 or 20 minutes, or 12 to 15 minutes, they're talking to me. They leave their post and they talk to me, and they're telling me this. Man, if you would have came yesterday, we could have helped you. We could have, this is intriguing to us. We want to help you find your family.
Yeah.
This, that, the other. It was just so awesome. And when I left from there, I felt like, dude, they really wanted to help me. It was a warm feeling.
Yes.
And I was like, guys, is there a way I could take a picture with you guys? And they were like, man, we would love to, but in our uniforms, we can't do it. We can't do it.
I'm surprised.
I'm like, man, but thank y'all for y'all's time. And they're like, man, good luck to you, in finding your family, and blah blah blah.
Wow.
And they said the same thing, dude. This guy you're from the Basque community. This is the Basque country. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty freaking awesome.
It's
That
even
is
more amazing.
awesome.
You had no idea.
No,
Yes.
Yeah, that's what's even
Yeah.
more amazing.
And it
So-
wasn't just like 1 or 2 people said that.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course I don't speak Spanish, but you can hear the Bosco. They would say that. I mean, every person he showed that photo to, I bet one said, "Oh, Bosco," every single time.
Oh, but I think it even goes further back to add way more value to why Shaun and you are best friends, and the seeds that were planted
Yeah.
all those 10 years ago with you watching a movie, and he's orchestrating this really cool thing that you guys are about to do. It gives me chills.
It's crazy.
It's kinda
because
cool.
going into Santiago de Compostela, it's a forest. It was the trees. What was the eucalyptus trees?
Massive.
And they're tall, and it's like leading the way. It's like an aisle leading towards
Oh my
Santiago,
gosh.
and I wanted to sit right there.
Yeah.
And just like, as I'm going through there, Shaun, his stride, obviously so he's a little further away from me, and I'm behind him, and I'm going slow because I don't want it to end. And at that spot, I'm talking to my mom, you know, because that's her deal was like that kind of scenery, trees and leaves and luscious, and it was that, and then the smell of eucalyptus. I just closed my eyes and I can smell it right now. It was penetrating, and so I'm sitting there talking to her, and I was like, "Look at this, Mom. Look at where I'm at. Look at this. You know how fortunate I am, and I don't want it to end, and it's coming to an end, but." It's just the stories that go along with it. And like I said, anybody that's listening that maybe wants to plan this out or whatever, it's like, you go with the why, but at the same time, even if you don't,
sure,
you'll find a reason. It'll come to you. And it doesn't have to be all of it. It don't have to be all 400 and whatever kilometers. It can be half. It can be a quarter. And that was the one interesting thing, that people that live pretty close to there were doing it in stages. They go do it for 2-3 weeks, and then they go off for the summertime, and then they come back again the next spring, and they'll walk it again. And it's like the history that's there. I mean, we could probably still be there if I had the time and had, you know, freaking sponsors and stuff to keep it going.
Speaking of which, if anyone wants to
Right.
I'm gonna pull up my QR code here, and like y'all can. Oh, y'all don't have that?
Go.
Not here. Yeah, but it was just stuff like that you know really brings it home.
That brings me down to my last two questions. First one is, you guys have CrossFitted together. You've traveled together. Just you two. You've traveled with your families. But after this trip, where does that put y'all's relationship, and what did it make you see?
And the fact that you guys sit on the couch while you hold hands, does that have to do? Is that from?
It's a day after Valentine's.
Yeah, that was our last trip. No. No, you know what's cool, and I see this, you know, not with just Jacob, but Bodie and Jay and Jerry and so forth. It's as you get older, and I try to tell this to my kids, you know, that there's some people that you come across in your life that become lifelong friends, and these people make an impact on you, and you need to hold on to these relationships, and like a marriage almost, you know, you
compromise.
need to, there's compromise, and you have to
Humility.
the whole bit. I mean, you got to really cultivate these relationships and hang on to them, and they're so meaningful, and they become even more meaningful when you get older. And you know, and that's the thing that I really like, you know, which again, getting back to that, these friends, Bodie, Jay, Jerry, these guys were calling us along our trip, and it's funny, just would hit us. You don't know how much it meant to us at times where we were low and just needed to hear from our friends, hey, keep going, you guys are doing great, we're proud of you, you know, just, you know, and we needed to hear what's going on back home. You know, I asked Jay, I said, hey, what's going back home? It's like, well, Jesse's not, you know, she hurt her back, and, you know, I needed to hear things like that so I could connect back home. And, you know, talking to Bodie about his son in college, or scouting out for college, and, you know, his last, you know, Bodie is key to us. He would help train us, you know, train with us during, you know, before we went. We'd walk every weekend and so forth, and, you know, we wanted our whole group of friends with us, and it's kind of hard to say, hey, you know, Jay, Bodie, everyone go ahead and let's take off 7 weeks, everyone go, you know, we still have responsibilities and so forth. Jacob and I were just a couple idiots that did threw caution to the wind. But no, I think it definitely makes a relationship stronger, and it just again solidifies with me how much my close friends, my best friends, are family, you know, to me. That, you know, how much you all mean to me, and yeah, I'll leave it at that because now I'm starting to tear up about it. But
I know.
Seriously, it's so important, and y'all listening and so forth, I challenge you when you get done with this podcast to call up your friends and just tell them, hey, I love you, and you mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
Just so they know, and you can't say it enough. You really can't. You gotta reach out and let them know and spend time with them and share laughs and so forth, because we're only on this earth for so long.
Right.
And we need to get out and,
Right.
and make sure that we're spending time with the people that we love and care about.
I know for the next 20, I even talked to Shaun about this the day after we recorded the first episode, but oh hell, just the next 24 hours, Jacob, I couldn't stop thinking about your mom. And I told Shaun, I said, I can't stop thinking about him not being able to leave that bracelet there. And I just couldn't do anything, not anything in my day. The kids had games and practices, and I'm just thinking of you trying to put that bracelet down, and you couldn't. And
Oh, you need to stop that.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
and then Shaun was just talking about Jocelyn or Jacob or Omi taking it back there, and it just goes right back to Shaun
Yeah.
and his grandmother. It just repeats it, and it's just so beautiful. Y'all mean so much to us, and I was just so honored that first night, and I'm so honored tonight. You guys are so good at this, telling your story, and
Yeah, like you saying, like two crazy guys that did it. I don't see that at all. I mean, y'all took a chance. I mean, you did something that tiny percent of the population would ever do.
Yeah.
I mean, you stepped up and you did something and you did it right.
Exactly.
And got through it. I mean, I'm really proud of you guys. What you done and the men you are, for sure.
And it hits you when you get into Santiago and you go to their what's that where you report and they give you the certificate.
The Pilgrim's office.
The
Yeah,
Pilgrim's
final.
office. And you get there and then they go over your stamps and they say you did the Francis. And it's like, yeah. And they give you the thumbs up.
Wow.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
wow.
And it's an elite
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
that do it, and it's like,
We're very competitive.
my goodness,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, going back to our friendship and our relationship, but as we're walking, we run into a group of guys. There was 4 of them, and I'm trying to remember their name. It was John, Roberto, and I can't think of the other guy, the tall guy. I don't know, for whatever reason, when I first saw them, I felt a connection. And I told Shaun, I would
My
tell him,
people.
these guys are my people. And
Yeah.
every time we run into them, hey,
Yeah.
and they would recognize Shaun, and they
Yeah.
hug us and whatnot. When we get to Santiago, all the whole time as we're walking, once I seen them, every time I would see them, I'm gonna take a picture with them, and it never came to pass. And then I was like, when we get to Santiago, I'm gonna take a picture with them, because these people are my family, and when I find
Yeah.
out they are, I'm gonna say, I told you, look, that's why I got
Yes.
the picture, because I've got
Yes.
proof here, type scenario. And we get to Santiago, and I don't see him. And I'm like, dang it, Shaun. He was like, I said, we missed him, dude, and I missed my chance. That night, I almost bawled to sleep, because I had all this time and I didn't do it. Why didn't you do it, Jacob? Why didn't you do it? And so the next day was our last day in Santiago, and we were gonna catch a plane to head out. That morning we woke up, we took a bus to Muxia, and to the ends of the earth is what they call it out there. And we came back and nothing.
What did I tell you though?
And he was like, you're gonna see him, dude. You're gonna see him. Don't worry, you're gonna see him. And I was like, in my pit of my stomach, I said, man, he's wrong.
Yeah.
He's wrong. And I fouled up. I should have took a picture when I had a chance, right? And so we get changed, because we're gonna come back in the evening to get something to eat. We're walking back, and down this
Stop.
alleyway, I hear a laugh, and I look, and it's my family. I was like, dude. Yes! I jump up and I go over there, and they see me and they, hey! And they come over and they text us, and they come over and they hug us, and we're hugging out. I was like,
gosh.
right now, line up, because
Yes.
we're fixing to take a
Yes.
picture. We're fixing to take a picture right now. And so, it's like, just came full circle.
Yes.
And I sent you that photo of all the standing.
Really?
That's
Yeah,
them.
I sent it to you in
Okay.
a text message so you have it. But this, you'll see.
Okay, I'll for
I'm
sure
not a
put it
small
on the
guy,
second.
and so 6'4",
Okay.
270. This guy that Jacob's talking about, one of the guys, he was huge. I
Really?
was looking up to him, a big old dude, but had this gruff voice. I can't even describe what the voice was, but he was like, "Oh, my friends."
No.
Which is so cool.
Oh.
Yeah,
I've
so
got an
neat.
uncle on my grandmother's side, Samuel, Tio Samuel, that he's just like that,
For real?
colored eyes, raspy voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, there's got to be a connection there,
Yes.
you know, type scenario. But
Yeah.
even if there's not, it was just a kinship
Sure.
that
Sure.
we connected. Not just me, but with Shaun,
Yeah.
all that. It was just. I mean, it solidified the whole trip.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
and it's just as we're sitting there at the table and we're talking. One of the guys that ended up being in their group was sitting there, and I was talking to him, and he was like, "So did you do this walk alone?" I was like, "No, that guy that just left, because Shaun had to. He went back to the hotel room to drop off. We had washed our clothes. We had just done laundry, and because he felt that I was with my family, he was like, "I'm gonna take the bags." I was like, "Dude, no, we'll just hang out. No, I'll
Yeah.
take the bags. You spend time here with your family. We'll
I
drop
love
it off,
it.
and then I'll come back." And so when Shaun left, me and that guy started talking. He was like, "You did it by yourself?" I was like, "No, the guy that just left, that's my buddy. That's my friend.
That
You
dude
know-
carrying my laundry.
He's my servant." But I was like, me and him, we came together. He's like, "Oh, y'all are together. Y'all came out from Texas. We came. We walked." And he was like, "Wow." He said, "To walk just
Yes.
8 kilometers with somebody and not kill yourself.
Yes.
Y'all are friends.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
friendship.
that's
That's a
Right.
relationship to really admire." And I was like, "Wow, I take that to heart."
Yeah.
Because I mean, yeah, in the whole walk, I mean, yeah, I'm sure we got on each other's nerves for whatever reason,
Sure.
but we stuck it through and
Yeah.
made it happen. And it was just like he says, I encouraged him, but he encouraged me a lot of the times that I didn't want to say I was hurting, but going into Burgos, that was the worst day of my trip. That was
Yeah.
the worst day. I mean, it kicked my arse
Yeah.
like something fierce. I mean, Shaun, I mean, for the most part, I was trying to keep up with them, but there was times where I was just far because I needed it. Every step, I felt like I was gonna throw up. It just that pain in my feet that shot up,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. But come on, let's go.
Yeah.
We got this. We got
Yeah.
this. Just a little bit further.
That was the very end.
That was halfway point.
That was halfway.
Yeah.
That was halfway point.
It was every day.
You
Got
saved
it.
him and he saved you.
Yep.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
and other people
Yeah.
saved them.
It's kind of like Bubba and Forrest. You lean on me, I lean on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and all that, we still. I mean, I had a great time because I went for the food and then also cigars. The cigars out there, I found some true Cubans out there. I found some cigars that they don't have out here at all. Diplomáticos, Coronales. I was able to find just Cohibas out there. Man, it was Davidoff's. And I mean, it was just great. And the people out there, I took some cigars from here, Plasencia. I took some Drew Estate, and they don't have that out there. So I was able to trade off. And they were like, "No, man, no, this is for you," type scenario. And it was just that right there just opens up conversation.
Yep.
And really brings us together and created friends out there in
Jacob
in
has no
Spain.
enemies and everyone's a friend.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Can't walk into a place without. Next thing you know, Jacob's pulling out a cigar out of his crazy cigar case that's
Yes.
actually sitting right next to him, so
Yes.
the listeners know. But with special cigars in it, he can probably tell you every country he came
Right.
from. And next thing you know, he's giving it to someone and
Yes.
sharing
Yeah.
the stories.
Which
Yeah.
he's done with you many times.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
brought my favorite back from Europe. It's
He
sitting
did.
downstairs.
Well, guys, we're super proud of y'all.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank
super
you.
proud to call you friends and love you both. And
Love you too.
did a
Yeah.
great job telling your story, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yes.
We missed you while you were gone, but really glad you went.
I thank you, and I also wanted to say at the end, thank you so much to everybody who followed us along,
Yeah.
who sent us beer and coffee money and so forth, and who called us, who sent us messages, through our families. You all mean so much to us. Thank you so much. It really, really lifted our spirits. And when I stood in Santiago, I said I would never do it again. I'm already planning to go back.
Yeah.
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 So be prepared for the next
I think
one.
you've
That's a zero
inspired.
surprise.
Yeah.
I think y'all have inspired more to go
Yeah,
to.
good. We love it.
All right,
Absolutely.
Love
Love you too, buddy. Thank you for having us.
You
You know,
bet.
we appreciate it.
you. Baby, you got anything else?
I don't think so.
Well, as the song says, the road goes on forever and the party never ends.
I love you.
I love you too.